Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Matthew 7:1-2, from a direct quote from our beloved Jesus Christ. So what does that mean? It sounds super judgy, doesn't it? I don't know if you've ever seen this meme, but it says, I'm judgmental, how non-judgmental of you. That's kind of like the same concept of what Jesus is teaching in this quote, is that be very careful about judgment, because the same way that you use that you measure judgment onto someone is the same way that's going to come back to you. It's actually a very similar concept to karma, a Buddhist or Hindu concept of karma, where what you kind of put out there comes back to you, or even the third law of thermodynamics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And so whatever you put out there is going to come back to you. Now, let's move this over to mental health, because that went way far off to the other side. It went to like science and spirituality and all that kind of stuff. So how does that relate to mental health? Well, a really popular concept of mental health is the concept of projection, or if we want to use Jungian terms, shadow work, or maybe even more popular out there is subconscious programming. So, or in non-clinical terms, selective attention or confirmation bias. These are all words that could be used to understand this concept of the measure you use to judge others is the measure that's going to be used to judge you, which means the lens in which you look at someone is actually more a reflection of who you are rather than a reflection of who they are. That's the main concept of projection. You're going to see in people the way you compute, or the way your brain is coded, or the way your subconscious programming works, or the things you value. So the measure that you're using is your value system that you are filtering your entire life experience through. So rather than seeing it as another person being that way, once you see them that way, then you want to go ahead and actually see, like, how is that actually a measure of who I am as a person? And that's a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, or a little bit of a hard frame to develop. But once you do, it's going to be a game changer, because that's when you come back into control in life. You're going to be less annoyed and irritated with your relationships and how interactions happen for you. And that's when you are able to create a transformation in your life and get to the results that you're looking for. So let's talk about a client case example of how this is played out with a client. This client that I was working with, who was constantly projecting her own feelings and her own thoughts onto her coworkers. She had a coworker who was in her own lateral position and constantly felt that her coworker was jealous of her and competing with her. And the more that we started working with this concept of, hey, you're measuring her with this judgment, what is that actually saying about you? That is the measure that you are being now held accountable to, or how you're viewing the situation through your lens. And so when we look back at her experience, it was that she felt threatened, and she was actually competing with her colleague, and she was the one that wanted the promotion, and felt threatened that maybe her colleague was more competent of having this potential for the promotion and might be taking it from her. It was a FOMO, or a lack pain that she was processing through her colleague, or seeing it through her colleague. And the transformation happened in her when she was able to see, like, oh no, this is my vulnerability, this is my weakness, this is my perspective. And she was actually able to become friends with this colleague and realize that that wasn't who the colleague was. The colleague was actually quite a meek person that was shy and introverted. And once this lens of her measure of competition was taken off, then she was actually able to connect with the colleague, not feel threatened by her anymore. They became friends, and she ended up getting the promotion she was looking for herself, without feeling threatened anymore. Now, another client case is a client who has a really strong trigger around time. This client works through numbers and time and measures everything with numbers. Everything's very calculated. And he was starting to complain like, hey, our sessions are only 45 minutes. Isn't 50 minutes or 60 minutes exactly the common time for sessions? Or when his son, when he went to go pick up his son after school and his son made him wait, it gave him a lot of anxiety. And when we started to look at it, like he was measuring people through numbers, through waiting, through time, that impatience. And he thought with the therapy sessions, he thought that he wasn't wanted, or that he was being pushed out, or that the therapist was trying to like kick him out of the session sooner or take something from him. And with his son, he felt like his son didn't want to see him or was avoiding him. And when we started looking a little bit further to be like, hey, where's this coming from? Why do you see others that way? Why are you seeing these relationships through this light? We realized that he has some really, really heavy abandonment issues from his own childhood, being a child of divorce, and constantly waiting for his dad to come around and not showing up and not showing up and not showing up. And that was the pain point. So the way he was measuring everything was through time and through waiting and through numbers, because that's how he was able to cope with something he wasn't given tools to cope with. And that's how he was measuring people's love and care for him, was through numbers and through time. And when he was able to process that pain, process that trauma, process that fear, that anxiety, that feeling of being lost and abandoned, and realize that that's not the case in his here and now, then he was able to have a closer relationship with his son. He was able to have some big breakthroughs in therapy sessions, specifically the breakthrough of working through his own childhood traumas. And then it started positively impacting his work relationships. He wasn't gripping so hard on his work accounts, and he was finally able to start opening up to another romantic relationship, and improving that in his life as well too. So sometimes these measures that we use to judge others, there's so many layers underneath it. And just like Jesus said, it's going to be the measure used to judge you, yourself. It's actually revealing to you what's really going on inside. So you can try to use this exercise in your own life experience to see and just get curious about it. See, like, okay, who's a person that triggers me and I judge them, or what's a situation that triggers me and I'm really upset about it, and see where is it reflecting back something from you. How are you showing up that way? Or how are you perceiving it that way? Or is this something that came from an earlier time or earlier experience in your life? And that way you can free yourself from the pain of past relationships, or the pain of abandonment or resentment or judgment, specifically judgment, and free yourself to more joyful experiences, more harmonious experiences, and give yourself permission to show up all kinds of ways, and it doesn't have to mean anything bad to anyone else. Okay, so I hope that this information today helped you in some positive way, and I will see you in the next video. May peace be with you.